And if the US were to respond by creating a CBDC based on the dollar, the current system would collapse. They simply cannot create such a dollar-based CBDC. If they lose their mind, maybe they will. But from my perspective, believing that Bitcoin cannot be eliminated, the most realistic stance for policymakers is to take a pragmatic approach. The only way for the Bitcoin revolution and the existing banking and reserve currency system to coexist is not through something like a CBDC, but through indirect ownership. Instead of allowing just anyone to own Bitcoin directly, it's about enabling indirect ownership. And what is that? That's exactly what an ETF is. Do you think they won't reach this conclusion? They will, and quickly. This is a really good question. Wouldn't allowing and expanding stablecoins to boost demand for US Treasuries effectively create the same economic impact as a CBDC? What would be the geopolitical implications of this? Oh, this is critical. This week, on Wednesday, I'm giving the final lecture at Hanyang University's Bitcoin Monetary Philosophy Executive Course on the day of the completion ceremony. The topic of my lecture is Eurodollars. Why? Because the US should have blocked the Eurodollar in the 1960s, but they didn't. And now, in the mid-2020s, it is highly likely that the US won't block stablecoins either. The reason they didn't stop the Eurodollar and the reason they won't stop stablecoins are the same. I've said before, the US operates as a patchwork system. Most of my acquaintances studied abroad and they are highly educated. But recently, I've come to a realization. I won't send my 3 kids abroad for education. Not because I lack the money, but because I sincerely believe it's unnecessary. Sure, they might learn something, but it won't be what we originally expected. It'll be something else entirely. That's why I don't feel the need to send them. Why? Because all my close acquaintances are foreign educated, yet I've watched them completely misunderstand Bitcoin. They spent 5 or 6 years studying in the US, but they never truly understood America. If I had said this 5 years ago, you would have thought, that guy is crazy, and assumed that those highly educated individuals were the rational ones, because their views align with common sense, while mine seem peculiar, strange. But now, as Bitcoin approaches $100,000, it turns out I was right, and they were all wrong. What does this mean? They never actually understood America. Studying abroad doesn't mean you understand a country. If a foreigner comes to Korea, spends time drinking in college areas, and then claims to understand Korea, would you believe them? Of course not. The answer is in the book. Just study Eurodollars. Why didn't the US stop Eurodollars? A pile of dollars existing outside of the Federal Reserve's jurisdiction. That's a huge headache. Why didn't they stop it? They didn't because the US operates as a patchwork system. Blocking it would have required too much effort, and besides, there were benefits to letting it be. Americans are fundamentally pragmatic. Stablecoins. Those are essentially offshore dollars circulating freely. The U.S. Southern District Attorney's Office even tried to prosecute Tether. But who just got appointed as the new Southern District Attorney? Who did Trump nominate? U.S. Southern District Court is like the Seoul Southern District Court. It handles financial crimes. It's one of the most powerful prosecutorial positions in America. That office was targeting Tether, USDT. Jay Clayton. Trump's choice of Jay Clayton is significant. Tether is well aware of this. Yes, they tried to crack down on Tether. But in the end, they didn't. Why? The advantages of having dollar-based stablecoins like USDT far outweigh the drawbacks. The reason is exactly the same as why the US didn't block Eurodollars in the 1960s. Stablecoins create new demand for the dollar. They enhance the dollar's stability. So why stop them? But CBDCs? That's a completely different story. If the US Federal Reserve issues a CBDC, the backlash from central banks in Japan, Europe, and Korea will be severe. That's why they can't do it. It's not that they won't. You have to understand this difference. These subtleties are exactly what social scientists need to grasp. Aren't they the same thing? No, they're not. This is the difference between something being official versus something being functionally equivalent but unofficial. You are experiencing this difference yourselves. In my view, as long as you can trade Bitcoin or BTC Mobic, does it really matter whether you do it on an official site or through an unofficial P2P transaction? But you guys couldn't sleep because of that difference, right? Do you get it? Even if I were the US, I couldn't launch a CBDC, because that would be the ultimate betrayal of their allies. But stablecoins? Why not? That's the logical conclusion. Exactly, I just didn't block it. That's the key. They are doing it, and I have to go out of my way to stop it. It also gives them a diplomatic excuse. Oh, we tried to regulate it, but the jurisdiction is complicated, and enforcement is tricky. But a CBDC? That's directly issued by the Federal Reserve. That would be like saying to all the other central banks, screw you. So at my lecture this Wednesday, aired on Sampro TV, I'll dive deep into this, comparing Eurodollars and stablecoins, explaining the real nature of the US system. Ultimately, the reason I've been consistent for the past 10 years and have been right isn't just luck. Sure, luck plays a role. But the reason all my highly educated, foreign-educated acquaintances were wrong isn't really about Bitcoin. It's about the fact that they didn't understand America. We naturally think this way. I studied in the US, then we just assume they must be good at English and know a lot about America, right? But no, they don't actually know America. They went there, worked hard to get good grades, and came back thinking they understand the country, but they don't. Knowing America isn't just about living there. Of course, Americans, having lived there, might understand things like jokes and cultural context better. But you have to study history and geopolitics to understand its range of actions.